talk on reinfection with SARS-CoV-2 infection in an organ transplant recipient. May I invite the speaker, Dr. Umapati Hegde. I invite the chairpersons for this talk, Dr. Tukaram Jamale, Dr. George Kurian, and Dr. Manjunath Shetty. Over to the chairpersons.
Today we have Dr. Umapati Hegde, who will be talking on his experience with one of the transplant patients with the COVID reinfection. We have seen many patients with the COVID reinfection, but not in the transplant scenario. But, so let us hear from Umapati Hegde what is his experience in treating this patient with the COVID reinfection. Or to Dr. Umapati Hegde.
Yeah, thank you, chairpersons. I thank the organizers and Dr. Vivek for the opportunity. The reinfection in SARS-CoV-2 in organ transplant, I am limited it to basically for kidney transplant recipient, being a nephrologist. And we all know that it is COVID affects the transplant. But how much affection is there in the general population, which already discussed, but again with the Alien et al., which has shown that 1,216 transplant patients which are followed up, they have shown 66 patients, that's up to 5% of the people were diagnosed with COVID. There are so many people who are asymptomatic, so this may be a lower limit. There may be more and more people might have been affected. But the mortality, if you see the overall transplant patients, if it is E1, but those who had transplant with COVID, the positive patients, the mortality was almost of the tune of around 24%. We also reported, which has been presented, it's almost 14.5% of the people in the admission, those who are admitted to the hospital, we had the mortality. The EDTA-ERD registry and by the French and Spanish, they reported an average infection rate of 14 per 1,000 transplant recipients, up to around 1.4%. But the average, the mortality is very high as compared to the general population. It's around 2.5%. This is the first episode. Overall mortality is around 20 to 28 days is 20.5, and among those who are hospitalized overall is around 18%. So this was the already it has been discussed in the previous session. Already we have published the data of 13 centers with 250 transplant recipients. And just to say that the mortality in the overall 11.5 and 14.5% in the hospitalized patients, and almost around 4.8% lost the graft, and the AKA was significantly almost in 48% of patients. Coming to the reinfection, it may be a reactivation or reinfection. The reactivation is by the same virus, it is hidden, and it is active like a CMV virus. It may get reactivated when the immunosuppression becomes higher. Reinfection by the different strain. So we need to know whether it's by whole genome sequencing, whether it is the same strain or a different strain, so that we'll be able to come to a conclusion what exactly it is, a reinfection or a reactivation. There are first cases of SARS-CoV-2 infection in the general population was reported by the Toe and colleagues, and the liver transplant patient by the Tomczyk and Tunch, who has reported in a liver transplant. Reinfections from those who have recovered from COVID, it creates a serious problem because sometimes the people may not be coming to a conclusion whether it's a reactivation or it's a cytokine or other some infections, because of all these COVID patients, they get more and more viral infections and even a bacterial infections for that matter. So tackling these patients and the viral spread also, it is longer in transplant patients, and Dr. Bahadur also has reported almost 60 days to 90 days after the transplant. So it is long duration of shedding of the virus is also known. So the recurrence is apparently, after the apparent recovery of primary disease, is increasingly now reported. And in a study in a general population by the Ye and colleagues, almost 9%, that is 5 out of 55 patients, had a recurrent. They thought it could be reactivation. Both symptomatic, asymptomatic, and minimally symptomatic patients are the potential, but not the severe. So there is a collaborative COVID recurrence proposed that the recurrence should be considered if there is a second episode happens after 21 days after the symptoms and it is free and an alternative etiologies have been excluded. So reinfection could be covered with, but again, it may be sometimes it may be devastating in the transplant patients, which we also saw. The reinfections usually create a serious challenge of tackling it, and so diagnosis is also maybe difficult in some. Organ transplant patients, basically, they can have the reactivation because of the immunosuppression, age, elderly age, and the comorbidities, diabetes, and the cancer therapy, or if there's an obesity, and also the viral factor. In being an immunosuppressed, they can get a both reactivation and reinfection, because the protective immunity conferred by the infection, we exactly don't know whether it is adequate or inadequate. This is one of the study from India in general population of the reinfection or reactivation, which has been published in JAPI. The incidence of reinfection reacting the healthcare workers almost to around 2%, which is not less. So it's with an average period of 66 days. Among those, 4 out of 9 patients were asymptomatic in the first episode, and the second episode, they were symptomatic, concluding that the shorter duration of SARS-CoV-2 infection in the first episode is going to have a more and more reinfection or reactivation as compared to the severe disease which happens in the first. What are the risk factors, the host factors, virological factors, and the immunosuppression? All three play an important role. In the host, it's the sex and the elderly ages, and the immunosuppression degree, it's going to affect the most. The virological factors, with the increasing reactivation, if there is any very high SARS-CoV-2 viral load initially, because it may persist longer, and the variable genotype, it is going to affect the things. But sometimes patient may have a cytokine storm, which may mislead whether it's a reactivation or an ongoing process. The cytokine storm might have a clinical symptoms similar to the recurrence, and it may have a mild drop in the CT value threshold for the virus, which may result that it is maybe a resulting positivity. So radiological evaluation may show that there is no persistent or increasing in the imaging, which may reveal. So the difference in the sensitivity of RT, different RT-PCRs are available. So they may also, because if it is done in 2 different labs, basically the RT-PCR targeting RNA-dependent RNA polymerase, that is RDP helipase, that is HEL, which has a very high sensitivity as compared to the others, which is done for COVID-19S, COVID-19N, or RDP-P2, which have a less sensitivity. So if the test is done, secondly, with an helicase, which may have more sensitivity, so you may think that the patient is having a second episode. So recurrence, it may be from multiple things. If it is a false positive SARS-CoV test in the second episode, or initial test, you may have the first episode, or the false negative RT-PCR at the discharge, you may be having a persistent of the symptoms, or the infection is ongoing, because they can last long in dialysis and transplant patients. So intermittent prolonged staining can happen. It may be a nosocomial infection, or a false positive RT-PCR test in the second day, or a reactivation, reinfection, which can happen. In our, though most of the patients were symptomatic, almost 77%, and the RT-CT values were 24 in the second, so should be the primary or a false positivity is ruled out. There is something known as a turning positive, which has also been reactivation. This is the phenomena of turning positive in 2 consecutive RT-PCR negative. 18 out of 600 patients in COVID-2 in China, they were positive. So this is known as a turning positive, where the coin was added to this. So in a cohort of another 71 patients with mild to moderate disease, they had turning positivity was 21%. So reactivation is known, and especially in the immunosense patients, it has a high risk factor. But there is no data of turning positive rate in transplant patients. The persistent detection of the viral load by the RT-PCR has clinical relevance, whether it is dead or live. WHO said that if it is more than 3 weeks, then or 10 days initially, and then later in transplant patients, 15 to 20 days. But again, we need to do a culture to show whether it is a dead virus or a live virus, but it is very difficult. We don't do that. So it is very difficult to say it's an ongoing infection or reinfection. But again, the associated clinical features will be able to, like a fever, dyspnea, along with the positivity, will be able to give that it is a reinfection. Degree of protective immunity confirmed by the infection is not exactly known. Mild infection may not give a good immunity, and the possibility of a reinfection is also not well understood. So possibly it has been shown that in the lysogenic phase, the viral reproduction is inactive and it is hidden in the cells without causing the disease symptoms, but it may get reactivated when there is immunosuppression increases or with the time to come. So there's another paper which has been shown that the possible mechanisms, the disappearance of protective immune response or the immunity, there may be a re-exposure of the new variant, or they may become susceptible to a second infection. So this has been clearly shown that if you see 60 days to 70 days, your the titer comes down significantly to less than 10. And these are the patients, again, the neutralizing antibody, they said if it is less than 20, they may have more and more infections. They are prone to infections. So how to say that by the clinical wise or the virological wise? It may be possible, probable, possible, likely, or unlikely. So if there is any initial test or the clinical things, both are not possible, it is very, very unlikely. If there is any probable or a clinical diagnosis of acute infection in primary and also the definite infection in clinically in the second time, it is a high possibility or it may be a probable. So likewise, the virology also, the decreasing CT threshold or the interval between more than 21 days or 60 days, it is a high probable that it may have an infection, or if there is any interval is lower, then it may be possible. So in 23,000 patients test which was done positive on the SARS-CoV-2, 5.6% had at least one additional SARS-CoV-2 PCR test positive after 16 days. So recurrence infection was confirmed to be 4.6. This is the study which were published by Vivek Kutte and all our group, that multi-center trial from in India, 8 centers were involved from April to May 21. 2 successive RT-PCRs were positive, and asymptomatic was in second episodes in 8%, and 46% had a mild and severe, and all those who have a severe infections, we lost. So the dyspnea, severe chest abnormalities were an important factor. The mean age was 46, and the definition what we took in our thing, it is SARS-CoV-2 positive in both first and second episodes. The severity was graded by the Government of India criteria by asymptomatic, mild, and moderate. None of the patients were symptomatic at the time of discharge. 2 consecutive RT-PCRs at 48 hours were negative before the second clinical or the PCR positivity. This was a retrospective study. They had 10 live and 3 deceased donors, and the average age was 46, and the median time was 9.2 months after the transplant. The most common comorbidities, hypertension and diabetes, and fever was less in the second episode. So this is the first and second episodes. What we see was the turning negativity was very, very short duration of time, only 9 days, and the fever was less in the second episode as compared to, but other symptoms were dry cough, breathing difficulty, and the diarrhea was same. If you see that the asymptomatics were only 1 in the second episodes, otherwise moderate disease and severe disease were very high, and all these patients who had severe disease, we lost them, and the D-dimer cytokines were also higher in those who had second episodes, but the more significantly, the D-dimer was high, and the baseline creatinine also higher in the second episode. So more patients, they had 46%. The second infection was mild and moderate and severe, and 6 patients who had severe infection died, and the median interval between the 2 episodes 120, 135 days, and 8 patients were in the first year, and was 62% constituting that. This might be the reason, increased immunosuppression. That might be the reason they might have got this infection. So the median time, those who have survived and those who have lost, the more important is the long duration of stay, but it was not coming significant statistically. Breathing difficulty was an important factor other than the things which are statistically significant. And if you see the symptomatic severe disease, we had lost them. So basically, other things was the neutrophil to lymphocyte ratio was very, very high in those who had died, and also the baseline creatinine and the before the treatment creatinine and the after the treatment were significantly higher in those who have lost. Risk factors for mortality were dyspnea, severity of the disease, and the allograft dysfunction was an important factor. Higher the neutrophil ratio and the intensive care unit requirement of ventilation, it was a significant factor which led to the mortality, which favoring large study. This was the largest study of recipients having SARS-CoV-2 reinfection, and it was 46% had mortality. Immunosuppression, what we did is similar to all other COVID patients. We had the reduction in the immunosuppression. In asymptomatic and mild disease, we stopped or reduced the azathioprine and MMF, and there was no change in the calcineurin. Moderate disease, the azathioprine stopped, and even the calcineurin was stopped in some. Limitation of the study is lack of molecular confirmation either by a culture, which can rule out is the ongoing activity or it's a positivity, whether it's a dead and live virus. but most of the patients had the clinical symptoms. Only one was asymptomatic. So this rules out that the ongoing activity or a dead virus. Some of the patients had an interval between the two was only 31 to 41 days. That is the reason this question was raised. The genetic sequencing was not done, which could tell us whether it's a reinfection or reactivation. Two patients did not have, they had infection in the dialysis time. This is another case study which was published, which shows that the primary infection they had, and patients after the 99 days, he had, because of the reduction in the immunosuppression, suffered graft dysfunction. The biopsy was done. It was an ACR, and then received an ATG and an MMF in high dose and rituximab. Then after the 200 days, he developed an infection, and it was a severe, and then he had to receive a lot of reduction in the immunosuppression and hospitalization for a long duration of time. To conclude, a COVID positivity is an important infection in the post-transplant, which added to all the other infections of virals like BKV, CMV, Parvo, and others. So it increases the morbidity and mortality. And the COVID has reduced the transplantation activities also in India. The incidence of COVID varies from 1.4% to 5%, and the reinfection is almost less than 1% and increases the risk of morbidity and mortality. First episodes, if it is mild, and if it is higher, then there is it's a higher chance of getting a reinfection. Reinfection increases the mortality and also morbidity. In our case, the 46% mortality was seen in those who have immunosuppressed patients. Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity, and I thank Vivek and all of the contributors for making this publication. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Umapathy, for that very good talk on this, especially on the your study from various, including various centers in this thing. One thing I would like to ask is is there any the interval between the first and second episode? Does it have any impact on the severity of the disease, severity of the COVID, the second episode? So if it is you have a varying time period of the interval between the first and second episode. So
no, there was no significant. If there is a shorter duration, there was a severity infection we did not see. Even the longer duration we did not. But those who have a milder infection, possibly the antibody production is not sufficient. So that might be the reason that they will get more indolent in the course of because the exposure was significantly higher with a second time. So they may get a reinfection possibly. We have not seen any significant interval between, because we had seen after 40 days also, and we had, in fact, one of the patients was asymptomatic in the first episode. Again, this was one which was totally asymptomatic, and she came with a graft dysfunction suddenly, and then she was having an obstruction, and then we did biopsy. Biopsy showed an ACR, and we gave immunosuppression by an methylprednisolone, not even an ATG. But after 4 weeks, he came with a severe COVID. So, but we could not say that it was a reinfection or reactivation. We could not. But again, the immunosuppression increased susceptibility, and she had a severe disease, and we lost her.
Good afternoon, Dr. Umapathy. It was a very good lucid talk on how to diagnose reinfection and the risk factors associated mortality and morbidity. I had one question. What are the vaccination status of these patients?
No, this was people were not vaccinated during that time. And in fact, like last we had collected the data, but it's only very, very few patients. We had around 8 patients who are vaccinated, and then 8 patients in vaccinated and that got COVID. One of the person has received 2 doses, and after a week he had it, but totally it was asymptomatic. So other patients who had more than 4 weeks after the because initially it was 1 month, and then they increased the interval to 90 days. Those who had at least 6 to 8 weeks after the initial first dose of vaccination, their requirement or the severity of infection was definitely less. Okay. But in this group, we didn't have any vaccinated patients.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Umapathy Hegde, for that very informative talk. And we thank the organizers and office bearers of the ISOT for giving us this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And ISOT and Dr. Vivek.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, speakers and chairpersons.